All right, here we are once again. Welcome back in to ESPN Louisville Plus. My name is Justin Soforo. Joining me today, once again, we're just like a regular cast and crew. At this point, we're adding somebody new today, new to the fold. With me today, Mark Ennis, Phil Baker, Jeff Lightsey, and now introducing Louis Rabeau. How you guys doing today? Everybody ready? Everybody excited? Everybody happy? Nobody's bothered. You can't be unhappy today, right? No unhappiness. Everybody's extremely enthusiastic.
It's championship week. Of course I'm happy. But you got to go out to all this stuff. Some of my best core memories are always from championship week. I cut school and I would go to Mr. Gaddy's and I would gladly take detention or ISAP for it. And then KP's taking that away from me. So that's where we are today.
Can I just say real quick, like the one thing for me is that I feel like I'm the only one that's more not like I'm the calmest one tonight. Like I think I've been so angry for 2 full years that at this point I've already blown my proverbial angry wad. Like it's gone at this point. Like it's already done. I can't do it. I can't get it back up at this point. It's up to the rest of you all. And I feel like a couple of people may do it. And of course, Biscuit decides to show up now, not the whole time while we're setting up. So let me go ahead and get Biscuit in. You guys take it away while I'm doing that.
I mean, just to that point, I don't know if a lot of people were angry actually watching the game. I think most of whatever vitriol or anger, because the result is what they are. Like, you kind of figured that was coming, the loss or whatever, blown the 12-point lead, all of that stuff. Like, you kind of saw that coming. It's the post-game comments that once again, if you had thought you had seen the mountaintop of climax of all the worst things that KP could say, I think he said the worst tonight. And I've said that a few times throughout the duration of these 2 years. Like, man, you can't say anything worse than that. Man, you can't really stoop any lower. And somehow he found a way to do it on the last day as the head coach. Somehow he found another way to do it and to actually blame you all, both you all in the media and you all that are listening because you're the fans, as to why this went so poorly over the last 2 years. So I didn't know that was possible, but here we are.
It looks like you're in witness protection right now.
Yeah, I'll add. First of all, Biscuit's like you're in somebody who hasn't washed their clean their fish tank in a while.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this mood lighting, and I got to tell you, there is no good way.
Do me a favor. Take whatever rag or something you have on you, something material, and whatever the camera is you're using, just take one little wipe. Just one little wipe.
That's none of your business. That's none of your business.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, Jeff is 100% right.
It didn't help at all.
Yeah, it really didn't. It just kind of spread it around. Dave is joining us from the alternate universe where it is all of our fault. Like that's right.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like.
No, look. First of all, Jordy, thank you for the praise for the sign. That was Angela. That was all Angela.
Yep.
But yes, it's the results themselves objectively bad enough, but it's coming along after and the interpretation of them by the person who's in charge of them as just aggressively wrong is how I would say it. Aggressively wrong. And this is one of the oddities of Kenny is always aggressive at the wrong time towards the wrong people. Protective of the wrong people at the wrong time. We're crying out to see him be some sort of disciplinarian, and he won't do it when it comes to Karan Davis, and all of this sort of thing constantly up to the very end. Louis and I were talking a little bit earlier today about fans being willing up until really the very last minute to root for him, and I think that was over. But after tonight, I think what you were really hoping for is some sort of recognition on his part. This has failed and it's over. Maybe be a little bit magnanimous and people will forgive you, like Richard Nixon. And this is a ridiculous example, but people, like, after he was gone for a little while, people sort of softened towards him because he wasn't the putz all the time, like he was when stuff was going wrong. Because we don't want to hate the coach. We don't really want to hate any of the presidents. We'll do like that's how it is. But you got to give us something, and to see him be like this aggressive about how it's just not his fault at all. It's going to make it really, really hard for people to ever just sort of let that fist unfurl a little bit.
So the big talking point for me, honestly, and Mark will tell you this, and if you listen to the show at all, you know this, is that like we had red flags, and I had things I talked about from week 1 of season 1, and before that. But what really like sent me over the edge last year, when I knew that it wasn't ever going to work, there was just no chance, was after season 1 when he simply washed his hands of 4-28, right? And what I said over and over again was, I've been witness to great leadership my whole life. Everybody has those people in their life. I have one in my house. My dad was an Army colonel. He was an airborne ranger. He's a great man. I learned if I didn't learn anything else from him, I sure as hell learned what leadership looked like, what accountability looked like. And that was not leadership at all. After year 1, it was just simply, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't do anything different. And basically just couldn't have gone there's nobody else that could have done better with this. This place is broken, and I'm here to fix it. And I was like, all right, well, we're done. This guy's cooked. I was pretty sure he was cooked before this, but now I know he is. And tonight was his Mona Lisa. He painted his masterpiece of just an absolute and complete lack of accountability, and just I hate to say it because people are going to be like, oh, you're piling on, dude. He picked a fight tonight. He picked a fight, and that's what he did on the way out the door. And it's like, what, this could have gone a couple of different ways, but you picked a fight on the way out the door. Tonight was a perfect encapsulation of a loser mentality. That's what that was tonight. That
Justin,
was. I sat here and I told you that it wasn't. I needed your time. I needed you all on the same page, dude. You didn't even give us the textbook. How can we be on the same page, man? You never told us what we were reading. You just said, I need time. I'm gonna need all y'all on the boat. I'm gonna need all y'all in here in this together. And he misremembers that opening press conference where he said, I sat here and told you that I wasn't going to let you blame me. That's not what you told us, but clearly that's what you had in mind. Right. I'm going to set the groundwork. I'm going to set the boundaries of this. I'm going to make sure I'm going to lay the groundwork to be able to explain all of this away when it goes poorly. That's what he was doing in his mind. You sure as hell didn't say that out loud. We've got all kinds of different examples of you saying how good you thought it might go, and this and that, and then 2 years later, it's all revisionist history.
Yeah. Do you want the Kent Spencer one first, or do you want Tyler Griever? Which one do you want me to go with, Mark?
It was the answer. The first one was an answer to Tyler's question, so do the Tyler one first, if that's okay.
Okay, one sec. I'll just take.
And just for what it's worth, your cal drops have been the tiniest bit low, so you might want to boost it just a little bit.
Did you like the taste in your mouth?
Is that good? Is that good?
Yeah, let's get that taste back in our mouth.
Okay. Just
was there anything better, anything more fitting than all the Calipari commercials during the whole game?
Yes. What is that? An investing company? Like, what is that? I just saw that for bits and pieces. But yeah, for those that haven't seen it on Twitter, not breaking news, but Field of 68, Jeff Goodman's putting out there that they have parted ways with Kenny Payne. It should be announced the next. Yes, right. Should be announced in the next 24 to 48 hours. So, yes, I think we all knew something like that was coming. But, that's some news that's out there for those that may have not seen that on Twitter yet.
Okay, let's
Goodman
try this one because
break it. He wanted to be the first to say it.
Right, 100%.
Right. Let's just go ahead and play this video. The one that Ken Spencer tweeted out, maybe that's what it is, because I don't see it on Griever's Twitter feed, at least. So
I'll DM you.
Okay.
With the season now over, have you been told anything about your future as head coach with the program?
No, I have not. For me, I go back to day one. It's unfortunate that we're talking about this right now. When I walked into the program as the new head coach, I talked about I needed everybody on the same page. We sort of forgot that. I talked about how I'm not going to let you blame me. I'm not standing up here by myself. I need all of Louisville with me. We sort of forgot that. I talked about it's going to take time, and I'm going to watch and see who jumped on and off the Titanic. We sort of forgot that.
I mean,
I talked about, I gave a specific time. I said 3 or 4 years, and I'm good with it. That's what I believed at that time, and that's what I still believe it takes to fix this program. And like I said, with guys like this, you have a foundation. Brandon Hatfield, Mike James, J.J. Traynor, the young guys that we have a foundation. Whether I'm the coach or not, I can look in the mirror and say I gave it everything I had to help this program. I love Louisville. I played here. I won a national championship here. This is not a job for me. Contrary to those who criticize, I don't sleep at night thinking about my brothers, the former players that played here, who had no access to the program. Should not be talking about this right now, but I have to say this. These young men, to play in a program where there's so much scrutiny, is unfair to them. They deserve to play in a program where people are uplifting them to be better, not fighting and tearing them down to make them question how good they are. Then you make my job impossible.
All right. Pete Thamel just coming out too with something. I was just say Pete Thamel just coming out to Louisville officials expect to inform coach Kenny Payne within the next 24 hours that he will not return as men's basketball coach. He's yet to speak with AD Josh Hurt since losing in the ACC tournament earlier today. So that coming out too. So Goodman first, but Pete Thamel putting that out there as well.
All right, a couple of things about that clip, which was really partial. It was Kent's question, and that was the answer to Tyler's question too. So there was kind of pieced together there. So that was everything. But first, I'm not going to let you blame me. I'm not up here alone. To start there, he's not alone. I'm not going to let you blame me. I'm not alone up here. I have yet to receive any of my checks, for what it's worth. Right? Like, I have not been paid for any of the work that I apparently did in this that was not good enough. And I have a feeling that none of you have either. He's not alone up there, but he is alone up there in terms of who's to blame for any of this. Like, it's kind of amazing that he's very clearly able to tell you what everyone else has done wrong here without ever being able to shine that light on himself at all. And to end that, the last line of that, with "you people make my job impossible." Man, we are not that good at what we do, or you're not that good at what you do. Because here's what I know. When the season's not going on, every Tuesday, I do radio with the guy that we booed to his face for the first 10 or 12 games of his first season playing for Louisville, and that guy's the MOP. So this idea that fans break players beyond belief or beyond repair for you, maybe he's right, that it made his job impossible, and that's why he's getting replaced.
I mean, it's just so much to unpack there. First of all, the one of the things that I found was very funny was like, we shouldn't be talking about the fact that former players didn't have access to the team. Man, I don't know if he's referring to Patino or to Mac, but maybe we need to install that again. Like, maybe we need that rule again because they did a lot more winning than we saw the last 2 years. Hell, maybe we need to put a ban and say, if you played here, you are not allowed to come to that. Because if that are the results of players being back involved with the program 12 wins in 2 years, I don't like that. Griff, Maben, Peyton, Luke, all you guys, I'm sorry. You're just gonna have to watch from the stands with us and watch from the TV because I mean, I just like that. Like, you're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that someone agrees with you at that point. Like, when you're just saying stuff like that and you're saying that the fan base or the media or whoever is just unbearable, you can't do your job, you're literally just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that something sticks with somebody, it resonates with somebody so they can defend you on your way out the door. But we all understand what's going on here. You just weren't good at your job. Like, it's just that simple. And most people who aren't good at their job don't get $6 to $8 million to go away. Like, it's just not. But fortunately for you, you will. And so therefore, there's no need to make this worse than what it is, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. You know, there are people that know Kenny Payne for his time at Louisville, right? That were born pre-1986, pre-1989, when he was drafted in the first round out of University of Louisville. But then there's people like me that were born in 95. Yeah, we're not going to remember that version of Kenny Payne. We're going to remember this version of Kenny Payne. And this version of Kenny Payne is going to go down until someone else breaks it as the worst basketball coach in the history of the Power 5 programs. Like, in major college basketball, he's going to go down as the worst college basketball coach in the history of major college basketball. And that's what he's going to have to live with. Not the whole, my brothers, that I won a championship here, I love this place. Okay, all of that sounds fine and dandy. But in the 2 years that you led this program, you walked away with 12 wins and 50 some odd, over 50 losses. And then worse than that, every post-game press conference, you took no accountability. So, I mean, that's just is what it is. And it's unfortunate that it's going down that way, but that's how it's going down.
By the way, real quick, first of all, I'm jealous of Louis' cigar, but I love that Louis is basically the AJ Hawk of the podcast right now. He's just sitting in the corner smoking a cigar.
He's the Clarence Thomas of this podcast. He's just watching. He's just no
He's
questions, no comments.
He's the AJ Hawk to everybody's Pat McAfee right now.
Yeah, none of you are built like that. Settle down. So what Lightsey was saying, man, for real, like, one thing I've appreciated about the talk about the next coaches that I haven't heard, it has to be a Louisville guy. Like, just go get the best person. And that is the overwhelming theme. I think that's been the easiest takeaway from all of this. I saw, you see these, online comments and these sorts of things that, KP may have actually unified the fan base accidentally, these sorts of things. I mean, if Jeff's talking about, I don't want players back to this guy. I mean, that is a unifying sort of thing, right? That there is just a desire to move from those things. And the one thing that always sticks with me, and, he said today, introduced, I said, hey, I'm going to need 3 or 4 years. Man, I never heard him say that. Not once, number one. Number two, he beat us over the head with, like, just having to know everything about all the guys who came before them. Man, if you went in the locker room after that game and said, name your top 3 players from the 1980 team, do you think any of the guys on the team could do it? I mean, he didn't even the simplest things. He promised all kinds of things about the community and the program, and it's just disappointing, man. Just disappointing.
All right, Louis, you got to adjust closer to your Wi-Fi where you were in and out there. So just before you're ready for your next round, just get a little stronger there. Phil, did you have anything you want to throw in there else?
No, I mean, look, we've talked about this over and over again with just the press conferences. It's been just one thing after another. And when he started blaming the city and the negativity around that, like, look, the Karan Davis, I know that bothered a lot of people. That didn't bother me as much as some of the things where at the press conference on the final game where he says he's 1 or 2 players away while Carter Knox was committing to Kentucky. So it's the question I've always posed, and I battled Kern and I battled, Zach EC on the Sunday show. Is at what point, when he says this is a multi-year deal that he would have to fix this, at what point can you turn the page and get some positive momentum? Like that's the only question, because it's just always something. It's always bringing up the past. And somebody said this with Ethan. I think we brought this up the other night. It was the caller on the post-game show, not tonight, but the night prior. And it was just like, everybody says that Kenny Payne's message isn't getting through. I disagree. And the caller's like, I disagree. I absolutely think it's getting through. When you talk about how you're broken, you talk about these people are constantly and these players are hurt and everything. You hear that starts to seep down, man. You start to believe it, and you talk about it and you bring it up over and over again. And Kenny Payne, to his credit, he'll say sometimes in the press conference, he's like, but nobody wants to hear that. But you still brought it up. So when you're constantly bringing it up, folks are going to, the players are like it or not subconsciously probably going to latch onto that. So it just wasn't what people thought it was going to be. You thought you were going to have connections at the Nike EYBL level, and you were going to be swimming in the waters of Kentucky and Duke and getting to the top recruits. They had an admirable class. I think you saw the quote even in Bozic's piece tonight talking about there is talent there. They shouldn't have lost to some of these teams. Sky Clark had a great game. But you see some of the quotes from Brandon Huntley Hatfield and Curtis Williams tonight that came out. And it just talks about
the Brandon Huntley Hatfield quote is the one to me.
Yeah, and it's just like there's just some confusion, and we've talked about the messaging over and over again. And I think you started hearing that and seeing some of that in the tweets tonight from some of the players.
Yeah, the quote from Brandon Huntley Hatfield was when asked about what went wrong tonight is, quote, a disconnect on every cylinder, whatever that means. We didn't have a clear directive on who we are as a defensive team. We didn't have an identity. We banded together as much as we could this season to be there for each other. End of quote. What the hell? I mean, that reads like it's a better explanation of what we saw all year than anything Kenny said.
This is that phrasing to me reads like the story of like how like a children in an abusive family survives and how they made it through before the police finally rescued them or whoever saved them from that scenario and got them out. That's what it sounds like. It's also very confusing because did he not, like, what was the comment that BHH gave midway through the season? Was that him being held at gunpoint where they were like basically saying something along the lines of, he's our guy, we'll only go with KP, or you know what I'm talking about? That happened, I think, sometime around the Kentucky game. And that's what I was wondering, like, did they literally, was that the only time they fed somebody lines was the players? But they never gave KP anything that actually made sense or would actually sound, like a good coach would say. That's I don't know. That's my perspective from that, and it made no sense of why. It makes sense why we're getting it now, but why? How did none of this leak out earlier? How did none of this, like, the frustration get out? Was that the one thing he did a good job at? Was he too busy doing that the entire time?
Well, how would it? I guess it was like, what do you mean? How would it have gotten out? I guess the only
frustrations of like not getting good coaching.
Well, I see. It's easy for Brandon to say what he said now is because the season's over, and he understands, just like we all understand, it's over for Kenny. As the reports are now coming out that he's expected.
I'm not going to be here
as soon as they get back. Yeah, so Brandon can say his true feelings because he understands he doesn't have a coach anymore, right? Like, or he's going to be moving on, whether it's to the pros or playing for a new coach, whether that's here somewhere else. So it's just. Like there, most of the time you see that in like the professional level. You don't see a lot of collegiate kids bashing their coach, right? Like you don't see college kids come out and say like, we're just not getting any guidance during the season. But you'll see that at the pros, right? You'll see Giannis call out his coach and get his coach fired, whatever. Like you see that. But that's why, I guess, to answer your question, you just don't see that a lot. Kids calling out the coach during the season because they have to go back to practice the next day. You know what I mean? Like and face that coach, whether it's good or bad or whatever. So that's why it's not the same in that aspect. But to your point though, Brandon is just telling you like, hey man, we didn't have any guidance this whole time. Like we were just trying to figure it out on our own. It's like it's just like you were just trying to figure it out, and we stood together with each other to get through all of this. Because they're on social media, they have friends, they played video games or whatever, so they know what's being said about them, they know what's being said about their team, and they know what's being said about their coach. But they're also living that reality as well.
Well, isn't it great that like the things we've said all year, we're like, it just doesn't look like they have any defensive principles. We've been saying it for 2 seasons. Is basically confirmed by Huntley Hatfield tonight. I mean, that's basically what he confirmed. We're all like, that's not how you do this. That's not how you do this. They don't have, like I've said all year, they feel like they don't prepare for individual opponents. They feel like, well, who's got the scout? I don't know. I don't think anybody has the scout. Like the things that we know and we hear about from other, like literally every other coaching staff in America, you'll hear them talking about who had the scout for this game or whatever. And we never, ever hear it from Kenny or from anybody on that staff. And they don't really talk about opponents' tendencies and stuff like that. And now we hear from Brandon Huntley-Hatfield basically like, look, I think the biggest failure was we didn't know what the hell we were supposed to do on defense, more so than anything else. And I think that, like Jeff said, I mean, we didn't even hear really a lot of stuff during the season in late-stage Petrino, like a guy that none of them really liked. And clearly these guys at least like Kenny on a personal level, but are also able to realize they're not stupid. These kids have played basketball their entire lives. They're getting on the court with teams that are clearly not as talented than them and losing by double digits. They know that they're not being coached properly. They're not stupid. They've been playing this game their entire lives.
By the way, isn't it kind of amazing that we've gotten now to what is the end? And for those just joining us, first of all, we see all your comments. All of you guys appreciate it. We'll interact with them as we can, and appreciate guys from other podcasts and other networks and websites and everything being in the chat. You guys are all great. Eric Crawford now expecting this to be done first thing in the morning as well. So there's kind of some local flavor to that reporting as well. I think it's kind of amazing that we've now really gotten to the end of Kenny Payne as the head coach. And every single time he says the words, I shouldn't say this, or we shouldn't be talking about this, I'm going to say this and we're going to talk about this. Every single
like, with all due respect, it's like a tick.
Yeah. And then here comes, no offense, but super offensive every time.
I said with all due respect.
Just really a total inability, I think, to really – it really worries me how we're so wrong about him. Because you thought you were bringing in the guy that, if nothing else,
who are you saying
he'd be connected, something. And instead, here's the guy saying, I shouldn't say this, and I'm always going to say it. The one thing you can't, there's no breaks that would stop him from saying, I just want to beat Kentucky by 1. Stuff like all of these times where you realize, hey, they're going to throw pies at you if you say that. And then he just charges in like the Kool-Aid man every time. And it's terrifying that this stuff just never occurred to him. The tights thing, saying Karan didn't do anything wrong. He's a good kid. When he's clearly the only one who ever found a way to cross you somehow. And then I would love to know.
I can't recruit with these guys, right?
Yeah, right. I would love to know what Kenny thinks of what Brandon said, because I'm willing to bet you any amount of money that if Kenny hears Brandon said we don't have any really clear defensive principles, Kenny would be like, well, I told you what they are.
What do you mean we didn't have them? I said it. I put it on the board. It's on the big board. Why didn't you see it? And Justin, we all heard you say, what do you mean we? Plenty of us were skeptical.
I'm kidding. I
know.
know.
I think,
I know.
But I'm
you
not.
don't
I'm not,
have to do it. I know.
No, Justin, I'm not going to pile on you. I'm trying to clarify what I think Mark was saying. He's not saying we were all so wrong because we all thought he would work out. He's saying man, he doesn't know how to do any of this. Yeah. It's not even that he's not good at it. Dude, he couldn't do the PR stuff. He didn't recruit at the level he could, and he seemed like he just sort of, when he ran into something he couldn't do it, his response was just to shut down. Have you ever been in a situation, whether it was school or work or something, where you hit a challenge, right? And there's a few different ways that you can address it. You can ask for help. You could stubbornly go at it and figure out your own way, or you can shut down. That's how some people accept challenges, is they shut down.
Free. Right.
Yes. And it almost feels like we know through reports, we all have our different people that we know in the athletic department or around, programs. Every single person I ever talked to said that he was just so stubborn and he wouldn't take outside help. And I don't know if that's a pride thing or if it's a shutdown thing. But everybody has those responses. And it went along with the leadership thing after the first year, was that he was so unable to be self-reflective, and that is something that is in being able to be honest with yourself about things. And that's something that every single successful leader or head coach can do, where they evaluate themselves and they talk about the things they have to do better. They talk about things. I mean, Jeff Brom does it after every single football game. He might win by 30. He's going to tell you the things that he didn't do right, and he owned the play calling against Pitt, things like that. We couldn't get that after a season that went 4-28. We couldn't get him to be self-reflective and talk about the things that went wrong, things he needs to do better. It was more like, I wouldn't do anything differently. I've got the best staff in America, and we just need time. Like, all right, man. All right, I guess.
Just real quick, just kind of not reset a little bit, but just want to say thanks to everybody who is in here. We are now 1,600, almost 1,700 people in here. Hopefully we'll get 2,000 by not too long. But if you're in here and you haven't already, do us a favor. Go to the YouTube channel. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers on there tonight. If you could, if you're not subscribed on the YouTube channel, go to the YouTube channel, whatever platform you're watching. Also hit the like button, all that good stuff. It's free. It helps us to continue to do this and grow the platform. So that's all I ask. If you're watching this, we're doing this. We've done it 2 nights in a row throughout this entire process. So if you could, please show us support by at least hitting like and subscribing on the YouTube channel at ESPN Louisville Plus.
Hey,
sorry.
You know what I thought of? Have you ever watched any of the TikToks? And it's to be funny, but it's like a parent trying to talk to their child, like what to do if a stranger comes up and talks to you, right? And like, what are you gonna do if a stranger walks up and asks you to get in the car with them? And the kid's like, get in that car. And you're like, no, don't get in that car. You're like, well, if they offer you candy, I'm gonna take that candy, right? Like, like that. In terms of answering the questions, it's like there's a sense in which the only thing you can't say is that I just want to beat Kentucky by 1. Is it beat Kentucky by 1? Dude. And to me, it is alarming that either there was just a very large group of people all committed to lying to us about him, or everyone around him doesn't understand him either.
Spot on.
But I'm shocked that he has turned out to be the diametric opposite of what we thought we were getting.
Jeff Borzello just put out this, and just piggybacking off of what Pete Thamel put out there. It says the Mississippi native ran into issues almost as soon as taking over, though. Payne hired Milt Wagner, former Louisville star and grandfather of then #1 recruit DJ Wagner, as the program's director of player development, alumni relations, only to watch Wagner commit to Kentucky. Wagner's high school and grassroots teammate Aaron Bradshaw joined him with the Wildcats, and grassroots teammate Mackenzie Mbako committed to Duke before going to Indiana. And I think, like, the whole Purvis stuff, going back to the Chris Mack, like I know Kenny Payne's going to be the one in the face of this, but there's a lot of other factors and people that I thought were coming to, like when Kenny Payne said, I needed help, where are they? Like that was always my thing. Like, Purvis is your best friend. Like,
they all got on the job and then walked away where they were before, which is not involved
like, you got what you wanted. You got what, I mean, Chris Mack, remember the Bozic speech with Chris Mack and saying how he hasn't seen any of the, Louisville staff up here? Your best friend is here. When are you going to send him someplace? So, I mean, that's just kind of a snippet from the Borzello piece, but I think that's just kind of like the first big concern is after the DJ Wagner and Aaron Bradshaw thing, the other guys that didn't come here that you thought you'd be in the running for. And then
it's not communism.
Precisely. So it's just, that's just one chapter of the Kenny Payne book when you look back on that you just thought that he was just going to have these connections in the best of both worlds with the Nike and Adidas stuff. It just doesn't come to fruition.
Look, the other part of that is, he hires Milt Wagner. He hires him in like we can be okay with it because he hired him into like an alumni relations position, right? And we were all like, all right, fine. So even if we don't get DJ Wagner, it's not going to hurt us really, whatever. He's like, I don't mind Milt getting paid for a job that's not taking from the basketball staff, right? And then the next year he's given 2 more on-court positions. Everybody is. And he promotes Milt Wagner into a basketball coaching position. When's the last time he coached basketball? Like, you're doing the same thing over again that you did with Danny, with initial staff.
And Biscuit, let's be clear. Like the alumni, and you guys can chime in on this. The alumni director position, that it's literally just kind of coordinating like former players getting tickets and sending them like swag.
Yeah.
So to go from that, make that leap to a coaching
position.
Concerning, a little concerning.
But just a little bit, yeah. But it's just like he's this every time he has a chance to correct something, it got worse. You know, he did something to compound it. It's like the bottom line is the man was not prepared for this job. He was in over his head, and it showed immediately. And instead of seeking help, you know, and accepting help with the media side of it and the PR and the publicity side of it, and accepting help maybe with everything else, and being open to hiring outside assistance when you have the 2 new jobs that open up, maybe getting younger and trying to open up new recruiting avenues. You said, hey, Milt, you're here. You want to coach again? Or I mean, like, you interested? Because God forbid I make a phone call.
I mean, you know, it's what's crazy is like when you really think about it, Kenny Payne, I think his salary is like $3.5 million. So you get $3.5 million last year, $3.5 million this year. That's $7 million. Let's just say the buyout they negotiated $6 million. So you're talking about $13 million for 12 wins. So, so $13 million. So you get over $1 million a win. What kind of job is that? Like, I'm in the wrong profession hanging out with you guys.
The best
like,
kind
where
of
can
job.
I do like where I can get $1 million a win and I get 32 tries both years? I get 30, so I get 64 tries, and I can finish with 12 wins, and I get $13 million to go the hell away. I mean, it's got to be the best. So anybody feeling sorry for Kenny, I feel sorry for you, buddy, because he's doing all right.
He's doing, but like I said
way,
at
I
the
don't
beginning of this, he picked a fight on the way out the door. You know what I mean? So that's why the tone of the fan base changed some tonight. You know, and I think I've never seen, like, people were upset, but there are people that I never see lash out ever, that were just plain angry. Our friend Tamaland, you know, that's been listening and following us for years. She is angry and tweeting angry, and she went to every home game this year. You know why she's mad? Because she paid for season tickets and showed up to every game, and she's being blamed for the kids not feeling good and his job being impossible to do. When, quite frankly, I think all of us sort of we spent a lot more time talking about, look, every once in a while a player catch a stray, but we didn't spend all this year blaming the players. Hell no, we didn't. We talked about how much we like the talent level, and how there's a lot of these kids that I'd like to play for the next coach. That's what we did most of this season. Every once in a while you had a day where, like, the substitution pattern pissed you off and maybe somebody caught a stray, and then at the end of the show, like, I collect myself and say, this is all on Kenny. Because he played this guy.
Yeah, they caught the strays.
Yeah,
You know what I
like,
mean? Like Zan, Danilo, like those guys. Man,
Sure.
I got some strays. This is for me. I can only speak for myself.
Oh,
I don't
me
wanna speak for
too.
anybody else.
But I'd always couch the discussion with, well, the only reason they're on the court is Kenny. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. And on the way out the door today, like, this is what he did. At the end of his tenure, he just farted in the room and walked out the door. And that's what we're left with. And we're just digesting that right now. We're just sniffing it up and reacting to it. So thank you very much for shitting in the room and leaving. We appreciate that, Coach Kenny Payne. That is your legacy. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, any shots that hit Trey White, I was aiming for Trey White. There were no strays.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I don't need any joggers on next year's team. None.
He caught plenty. He was cooked. He was burnt toast tonight and a lot of nights.
I was about to say, yeah, when just tonight. It's been like that.
D'Lo,
for a while.
JV is right. D'Lo has caught strays all year. One of the very first Power 10 spaces I ever jumped in, they were like, he's not good because he can't see because his hair is in his eyes. It was my favorite explanation of all. Mainly because it's never happened to me, but also it's funny to think about once he's out there. Louis and I never have to worry about this.
Nope, not going to be a problem. By the way, the Milt Wagner promotion reminded me of the last year of Bobby Petrino, like having to hire his own family.
Oh, yeah, just his whole family tree getting jobs.
No, but nobody wanted to come here and get fired, man. I'm serious. Like, people knew it was a problem, and you can't go get people if they don't want to come, man.
I think it turned into
Can
that.
I'll pose this to everybody. You know, we're all going to have to sort of work through where we were wrong, and there we should admit, first of all, there were people who said this is going to be a disaster. There were, and we dismissed them, and they maybe didn't have reason to think that, but they did, and they were right. But I wonder if what you guys think about this. Did Kenny fake it to get the job? I have a hard time believing that he did, but just because it doesn't really seem like he tried that hard to get it.
I don't think he wanted it. I mean, that's
what I want to know. Did Kenny, was he self-deceived about what he thought he would get from other people? Right? Like, did he misperceive how important he was to Nike, to other potential assistant coaches, to Purvis, to people in the recruiting circle? Like, did he arrive here confident he'd get a certain level of support that he actually didn't have?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. And that's not to say that it's not the case, because we really don't know. But at the same time, there's a threshold of work that you have to put in, right? Like there's a thing, like, yeah, you can expect certain things from certain people, expect certain resources, but another thing is just you putting in the work. Right, because there's a bare minimum of resources that U of L as a university and the Louisville basketball program provides that you just can't get most places anyway. All the other stuff was just going to be bonus, right? But if you're the Louisville men's basketball coach, you can get into any room with any recruit in the country. Now, of course, there's certain recruits that are predestined to go to a Nike school. Like that's just how some of it works. But then you also see with this new age NIL, Adidas is signing high-level talent too. And these kids are still going to Kansas. They're still choosing Miami, whether they're having a good season or not. They're still going to other Adidas-type schools, because remember, that was some of the narrative as year two, aka year one, aka whatever, was going bad, that you saw certain people started throwing out, well, they can't get the players because they're not Nike. They can't get the players. Louisville needs to be Nike. Louisville needs to be Jordan. So those are like some of the smoke signals to try to kind of cape for KP at that time, like halfway through this season when we kind of saw it going astray again. But that's not an excuse, because it wasn't an excuse for Mac. It was an excuse for Pitino. Yeah, they may have talked about it and pointed it out because it was the inevitable, but they still were able to win games and at least win more games than this, because this is historically bad. This is not just bad. Like if Louisville had back-to-back 15-win seasons, we would be talking about how bad it was. But we're talking about less than 15 wins in 2 years. Nothing can compare you for this level of how bad it's been.
And then you add on, Ennis, you had the guy, I'm drawing a blank, from The Athletic. Yeah, and what did he say? What did he say about guys like he didn't see him there. He didn't see the coaching staff at some of these big recruiting things. So I think some flags were there in terms of that. And that just kind of popped into my head. And that's a guy that has no dog in the fight. That's just a national college basketball guy that was kind of like, hey, this is kind of interesting what's going on.
This is what people said to me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of when you look back on just the entire story of everything that's transpired here, little things like that just kept happening over and over again, and he could never get the help from these people and power brokers that I thought that kind of bought into. It's like, okay, I have concerns about his coaching experience, but I can buy into the EYBL connections and his connections with Nike, but they just never came to fruition. And that's pretty impressive considering they had a top 6, top 7 class with the transfer portal and recruiting.
But on top of that, Phil, just think about the recruits that Kenny actually landed while he was here. Like almost all of them, especially in this last class, the kids that are freshmen now, almost all of them, Kenny in U of L, at least this version of U of L, was the second choice. Like Tyler Johnson was going to Memphis. At first, and then his grade stuff, but Louisville got him in, and it barely got him in. You had Trenton Flowers, who was a reclass in late edition, who ended up never making it to campus. Dennis Evans was originally going to Minnesota. And then obviously the health thing happened with him. Caleb Glenn was committed to Chris Mack. So, I mean, like, it wasn't like he went out there and was establishing these deep formed relationships, really engraving himself into this, into these kids' lives, or out there really grinding hard on the recruiting trail, whether it was for high school kids or for transfer portals. And then if you do these last 2 last-ditch efforts, the Sanan kid, Like, he did an interview with Trilly in January, didn't mention Louisville. Then all of a sudden, his parents make a mysterious visit here. So once again, last minute recruiting. And then Carter Knox, you had this built-in relationship from the UK, his brother going to UK, and he still chose to go to UK, which is probably always going to be the case. So you get what I'm saying? Like, none of these were like, yo, I've known K. And then anybody else, whether it was Sky Clark or Brandon, he recruited them when he was at Kentucky. So, or Sky Clark at Kentucky, he was committed to Kentucky originally. Same with Brandon. So it was like, he wasn't committed, but like as a younger high school player. So none of the guys that he even brought in really, like, he had them from the jump. They either made pit stops other places or were temporarily committed to other places, and at the very last minute decided to go to Louisville. And that, in turn, when you think about it, probably should have been a red flag as well.
Yeah, and in the he did an interview with Derwin Webb, which it was largely stuff we've heard him say before. But I thought it was interesting that he was asked about handling the world of NIL and all that sort of thing. And he said something that to me is a red flag anytime any coach says it. And it was, I kind of miss the old way. I prefer the old way of doing things. And I don't want a transactional relationship. Those were the words he used. And my red flags go way up anytime I hear a coach say, I wish it was a different way, because you're wasting time.
Yes.
Right? And you're wasting energy wishing for it to be other than it is. You want it one way, that's the other way, right? This is the wire, right? But not only that, buddy, that's all we have now are transactional relationships. That's how you get them. Like, there's nobody who grew up loving you. Everyone's where they are. If it's a player with any kind of demand at all, that wherever they are, they're there because of a transaction. So you can wish it was some other way, but you have transactional relationships. And it almost seems like he got here thinking he got to coach the old way of doing things, and everything had changed under his feet. And Perry, I slayed you guys.
You did. You did. I'm gonna use this
I
link.
read the Bring Brom home stuff. I'm all thrown off. I'm getting
There's
like all these screenshots.
Real quick, while we have a little bit of a break, I do want to just take a little moment. I want to capitalize on this. And I want to say, first of all, once again, we are now at 2,100 people in the live right now, which is pretty damn good. Pretty damn good for doing this. So I want to capitalize on this. So many of you bastards out there right now, do me a favor, go to the YouTube channel. If we get to 1,000 subscribers tonight, I'm gonna give away, personally from me, I'm gonna give away either your choice of a Louisville jersey from the shop, or if you want a pullover. I thought about this, which was today's shirt they wore, but it literally was a moment. It was only a moment that they played in the postseason. So if you want the Our Moment shirt, we can do that, because it's
blink
all
and
we
you'll
got
miss
in the
it.
postseason. Yes, exactly. So if you all go to the YouTube channel at ESPN Louisville Plus, it's ESPN Louisville, you will find us. We're live on there right now. Subscribe to the channel and then leave a comment that you subscribed in the chat right now. I will do that. We'll give it away to one of you guys tonight. Just do me a favor. Just do that right now. Sorry.
Are those moment shirts going in the shipment with the 49ers Super Bowl champions to whatever country they send those shirts to?
Yes.
I think that's what they should do.
Louis, your audio sounds so much better.
It is much better. You are pristine at this
By the
point
way,
now.
Louis is like in the corner, just being like post-sex Louis, just smoking that cigar.
Yeah.
Like, we're all breaking it all
definitely
down. And Louis
post-coital,
just like,
yeah.
we got his ass. Like, just
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's really fun.
He really is the AJ Hawk of this webcast. Like, it happened. Like, he really is. That's what he is.
I'm all neck
Like,
and no
this
words.
is
That's
the
right,
meathead.
baby. Let's go.
All the heavy
Well, I love
hitters
that-
are texting me right now. I'm getting Cooper texting me. I'm getting Spencer Brown.
Oh,
I'm
little
getting
sauce.
J-Bone's texting me. Jared Stillman. Like, all these folks are watching us. How about that?
Look at that.
How about it?
Sorry, Harold.
So I was
Harold's like, why
like,
the Niners kind of catch strays?
So many good comments, dude. There are. They're great.
I cannot keep up.
I
with
did
this
see one
chat.
earlier. Someone didn't know you looked like John Malkovich, but you do, Marcus. It's a good comment. It is.
He tricked me.
Izzo is next, Louis.
You can't make the
man.
NCAA tournament every year. That's be below expectations. I hear you.
You just said the he tricked me, and I think we can do this without it feeling like we're just sort of being dorky, picking on him. But
I was just quoting Rounders because you look like John Malkovich, but
well,
yeah.
that's fine. But like, I want to know, like, your whatever something he said in one of these press conferences that for you, either you just thought it was hilarious, or and Lou, you can go first. That's fine. I see that hand. Hold on, but like, or the thing that you were just like, oh, that's the one that let me know this is hopeless. So Lou, you can go first.
Last year, after they lose by 20 at home to Pitt, and he's like, and then the kid was standing in front of me, and I'm keep yelling, "Get over here and stop him!" And he's like yelling, "I'll get over there, cover the 3." And he turned around after he hit it, and he said, "Hey, coach, didn't get there quick enough." And the Bozich laugh happened. And I was like, we're done. We're done. We're done.
Yeah.
Something that
It's like,
I
is that
wasn't
funny, Rick?
prepared
That was
for.
funny.
Like
Yeah.
And that was the hatred.
Nothing about that is funny. Nothing about that is funny. I mean, it's funny now to me, but it's not funny to Louisville fans. I mean, it's just not funny.
So there were so many in the first season, but like the one that always sticks out to me was after Kentucky Wesleyan's when he said we're not going to out talent people, and I was like, bro, that's a Division II team. Like, this is not the time. Read the room. Like, what are you talking about? And the sad part is when you look at all the talent breakdowns, this is one of our most talented rosters of the last decade, by star rating and everything. And it just doesn't – we have purely just objective – not even objective because it's always subjective, but a third-party ranking system. We have a top half of the ACC roster. That's the saddest part about it. And he's telling you after losing to Division II Kentucky Wesleyan in an exhibition game, which, by the way, we should probably note because a lot of different people tweeted it out. Mike Rutherford did. I think Kelly Dickey did. A couple other people. We have more losses to Division II teams in exhibitions than we do road wins in his tenure.
Yeah.
Like, these are the things we need a tweet. We're going to need more than one tweet, especially if we don't have the blue check mark, whatever. To compile all the ridiculous statistics and all the one-liners and all the just jaw-dropping things that the never have we ever, program firsts and program lows and all the things that we've gone through in the last 2 years. But that post Kentucky Wesleyan, we're not going to out-talent teams. Just about maybe I was just like, this is the beginning of year 2. You went 4-28 last year. You just lost to your second Division II team in an exhibition, and the thing you decided to say was we're not going to out-talent teams. And I almost understand what he was trying to say, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't know how to communicate it, which was probably the problem with him and his players too. So,
what about you, Jeff?
The one CL asked him, "Hey, Kenny, Coach Cal said you're about a year away from getting this thing right. How long do you think you are to get into your roster looking like theirs?" And he goes, "Did you see all those All-Americans?" He laughed, and all I can do is laugh when thinking about it. It's like, did you see all? Yeah, Kenny, I did. And I'm wondering, you clearly don't think that's even possible here. Like the way you uttered that, just let me know. Like, oh, you don't even think that's possible here. Like, and then around that same time is when I don't know if it was Nick Coffey or whoever started circulating the presser from when he was at Kentucky and the standards of Kentucky. How he implemented, and like that clip was circling around during the same time, and I'm like, oh. Okay, so you just don't think it's possible to do that, to replicate whatever you saw there in Lexington. You just don't think that's possible to replicate here in any form. I'm not saying to do everything, but in any form, shape, form, or fashion, you just don't think that's possible. And it's like, oh, okay, got it. Got it.
yeah, you don't see this job the way you see that job. That's for damn sure.
Right.
It doesn't matter if
Not
you
at all.
played here or not. You don't respect this job the way that the fan base respects this job, and thought that at the very least that was one of the things that was a selling point about you is that, man, you're going to understand this job, right? You're going to get it because you won a championship here and you played under Denny Crum. You understand how special this place is, and then within a year we're being told that we expect too much. We're almost immediately getting our expectations altered or adjusted, by the head coach. Instead of him rising to challenges, he's adjusting the bar lower and lower and telling us that man, you asked for too much. You know, like this isn't Kentucky. We can't recruit those kids. We can't win those games. And you act like you're Kentucky. It's like, come on, man. Like, don't tell that to us.
You're not UK.
Take that shit
Like,
down
are
the
you
road. Like, that's
serious?
not a.
Like, come on. What?
Yeah,
What do you think
It's so
you're
sorry. I know
gay?
everybody's got to get their post game comments in, but I had to piggyback off of Jeff's comment.
By
It's
the
so-
way,
and
in the comments, keep the Josh Jameson jokes coming. I find them hilarious. Thank you very
They are
much.
they are great.
They're amazing.
When is the
What
Josh
if
Jameson
Josh
Essential Oils
Jameson
website
is-
going up?
What if Josh Jameson is like actually an embedded journalist, right? Like he doesn't actually do any
He's Trent Krim.
coaching. Yeah, and he's
Trent Krim, the Independent.
exactly. Yes, he's writing a book about all of this.
Oh,
That would
that's
be
awesome.
amazing, and it would make more sense than him being some sort of a coach.
Or maybe he's like the one good coach on the staff, but nobody ever listened to him. He's just over there, like, always has the right. Yeah.
We know it's not
It's
him.
like, all right,
Yeah.
look, Josh, go get your clipboard. It's fine.
Phil, did you have one?
No, I mean the Lenore rhyme, Leanne rhymes, as we have fun with when it said we needed that, and the one that was kind of some inside baseball and it was on Twitter that I don't know if everybody saw, the dry erase board. When it was just they took the photo and there was a dry erase board
Yeah.
of just the recruits they were targeting.
Yeah.
And it was circled. It was like Ash. I know that's really inside baseball, but it just felt like very sloppy, and I think that kind of that was a caution for concern. Where I'm like, man, this is. I don't. That doesn't feel like that's something you should do. And I understand stuff happens. Mayor Fisher tweeted out from the John or the stall when he was reading the Google Fiber stuff. Stuff happens. I get it, but it just felt very sloppy. That was something that doesn't get talked about a ton, but it had like DJ Wagner and Aaron Bradshaw on their dry erase board of who they were targeting, and I was just like, it wasn't anything no one knew, but it just to put it out there in the fashion that it was just felt very meh.
Has anybody called Aaron? Did you cross his name off the list yet? He's on the board.
Yeah, I just wanted to. For me, it was when they made that video with the clip from Diener. Like to produce basically security cam footage from practice.
That's a needle in the haystack too.
To dunk on Diener after being very fortunate to beat a team that you ought to crush.
Yep.
It was, to me, it was the ultimate self-own that they did that, in that like you were showing that the criticisms get to you, and then you thought this was a good retort. Like you thought that it would I'm amazed, constantly amazed at what he thinks is the right thing to say. And the idea of that was the moment to go get chesty. And look, not a lot of people like Drew, okay? So it takes work to be the less sympathetic figure in a lot of these go-arounds with Drew. And they nailed it. Like it's incredible how misreading of the whole temperature. You would at least like to feel like in that moment they'd be like, we were lucky to get out of there. Let's just whistle past the graveyard and move on. But instead it's like, no one asked me how I fixed it. You're like, man,
That's the quote. That's the quote. Nobody asked me how I fixed it. That's the one where you're just like, holy shit, man, what'd you fix? You just
Nobody asked.
I mean, by the way, Danny suggesting that Jameson is actually the TV host of a reality show called The Plant. It's coming out on Netflix soon. Yes, more of that. Let's go. Comments are great.
the mole.
The Plant. I did see earlier, when does Jameson start his essential oils website? God, listen, you people are great. Oh, that's fantastic.
Oils by Josh.
What do you want the Nolan Smith newsletter to be? And I hope it's a tell all. I'm just this is where Mark Blankenbaker and I are like two paths in a forest here. I feel badly for Nolan. I don't know that any of these assistant coaches could have really thrived under leadership like this. But I don't think Nolan wasn't employed to the same extent that these players weren't coached. And if Brandon Huntley Hatfield can say, we didn't have a philosophy, it's not very hard for me to believe that the employed guys would also say, we don't have a philosophy. And I've been told by people who would know that the staff does not meet like as a staff. And that we all saw.
Hold on, Mark.
Do
So
they know
you're
where his
saying
office is?
a Division I men's basketball program that has a multi-million-dollar budget for all things basketball related, they don't meet as a staff? Is that what you're saying?
And have not for a very long time. And we've saw the reports that some of the coaches didn't know Sanan was visiting.
Yes.
On the way.
Thought it was canceled, right?
Well, like that sort of thing going on, and I continue to issue my call to any of you. Show me the game video where you last saw Kenny Payne talk to Nolan Smith. Produce it. I don't think you can. And like that's the lunacy of people that don't meet. We have a head coach with an assistant coach that doesn't talk to him. How did this ever happen? And while I guess I can understand on a strategic level, Josh wanted to ride this out until the end, like you let some real aggressive malfeasance go on for a long time.
I think
it's like,
by the way, how
tax
Kenny
cap
Manning was
confession.
never this bad as a head coach, and they're just off the rails terrible. I mean, that's supposed to be his helper head coach guy because he didn't have the experience, and it just hasn't. I mean, nothing from it. Just absolutely nothing from the assistants as far as we can tell.
During I guess do we get an answer? I'm guessing the answer is gonna be no, but do we get any kind of light shed on the situation of why Josh let it get to the end? Like, do you think he opens up, or is it just going to be, I thought he deserved, is that all we're going to get, is he deserved 2 full years to prove that he couldn't do the job?
It's not going to be an extensive, long-winded answer, because he's not going to, he's going to he's going to address it, because he's got to address it all, right? Whether it's a press conference, a PR release, or whatever. Like, if you get all these reports saying Kenny will be out in the next, tomorrow, essentially, we're going to get the news, then he's got to say something to someone, whether it's, like I said, typed out, verbatim, quote, whatever. But he's not going to, I don't think he's going to go into grave detail on I thought that he may turn it around. It's just no, I just gave him 2 complete full seasons. He's an alumni. See, you have to treat this Josh had to treat this really with delicate gloves, because there are people that do care about Kenny, because Kenny is an alumni. Kenny did play for the school. Kenny does have relationships, good or bad, with the people here in this area. Whether he utilized them or not, that's on him, but he has those relationships. So Josh didn't want to just come through and just gun-ho wreck ship on everything. He is an alumni, so you treat it with delicate gloves, and that way to the next guy, whoever you hire, the next guy can at least see hey, this guy rode with him with only 12 wins. So this guy's not gonna jerk me. He's not gonna just be a jerk to me, because he rode with this guy.
He exhausted every opportunity to have
exactly.
And he allowed him to get the full picture, and we saw that the full picture was not what it should have been.
And that makes sense to me to a point. My only issue that I would say is this was the worst fucking thing I've ever seen in sports. It's the worst. They're you know what I mean? This is literally a bomb is going off, and you're just we'll let it finish. We could cut the wire,
he's our rich
but
coach.
We're not going to cut the wire.
Look, it's. But I think that's what Jeff said is what we've been saying is, look, you get rid of any possible backlash. I mean, if you after the second year, you're look, we didn't touch it. We didn't make any public comments. We let him do this his own way. We didn't force him to make staff changes. We didn't force him to do any of that stuff. He did it his way, and it was abysmal. So after 2 years, and guess what happened over the last 2 months, 3 months? A lot of hardcore Kenny Payne supporters came over to the other side. All right, there's a lot of people that I know that have been extremely vocal Kenny Payne supporters, and you may not think it matters, but I think it matters that a vast majority of the fan base is all on the same page. with this at this point. There's going to be that small, like I've been saying for a month, that group of Japanese soldiers that are still fighting 15 years after World War II is over because nobody told them, and they're in the tunnels and the islands. Like, there's going to be that group.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the fan base is on the same page, especially after the press conference tonight. So it's, I think that it served its purpose to, as painful as it was, and as much as I think we would have been justified after the Kentucky game, and again after the Pitt game and a few other stops along the way, this made sure that he got 2 full seasons. He exhausted, like, Josh cannot be accused by anybody reasonable of not giving him every opportunity to do this. And obviously Kenny Payne hasn't been reasonable about it, or he's been delusional about it. But at the end of the day, right. Well, I don't know if it makes.
Look at the program
firing
right now,
him
the way it's
doesn't
perceived.
change it though. Like, firing doesn't change. It does. And here's the thing about Josh, because it doesn't change anything, because you weren't going to hire Danny or Nolan or Jameson as the head coach anyway. So it doesn't change anything. Maybe they get a few more wins, but the end result still would have been the end result. And with Josh, after year 1 of Kenny Payne, he probably knew this was over. Like, this wasn't going to end well. So regardless, he's building his contact list. He's building who he thinks he's now going to pick his guy without an interim tag, without any influence from media members, alumni, fan bases, whatever. And there is no version of Kenny Payne out there for people to try to force feed on him. And so that's the thing. Like, if the criticism, whatever that may be, little that may be, that he can take from this Kenny Payne experiment, letting him finish out the season, it all gets washed away if you make the right hire. It all gets washed away if you make the right hire, which your job depends on it anyway. So you stick to your guns. You take the few, bullets that you may take. You're going to take some bullets, right? There's people, they're going to say, Josh shouldn't have let this go this long, and that's fair, whatever.
Corey Alexander.
But at the end of the day, at the end of the day,
Corey's saying the opposite.
If you
let it go longer.
Hire right,
let us have more of
you
this.
get
Is what
this
Corey
hire
Alexander
right.
wants.
None of it matters. You get the hire right. None of it matters. And guess what? We'll be singing your praises, and you will etch yourself in the history of Louisville sports by making that hire, whoever that hire may be.
I still just wonder. Like, to me, that's fine. I talk so much. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I just wanted to say about, like, negativity, and I've, like, it's obvious Kenny really thinks like he's the victim of some like over the top
grave injustice,
conspiracy or something.
And I would just say, like, I think people have really fought hard, and I think, frankly, been a lot nicer to him than they were to Scott Satterfield, who had
100%.
like had a much better record, like just couldn't kick it up to that next level. But we could tell he didn't want to be here, and we could tell he did the same sorts of blame shifting kinds of things, but the results were a little bit better. We hated the hell out of that guy. Like, hated him.
Here's the thing. He may not believe this, but he's gotten the best version of what 12 and 52 would look like. Because he's Kenny Payne.
It would have been
because he's Kenny Payne.
Yeah,
if we had hired Matt McMahon 2 years ago, and he had gone 12 and 52, he would have been fired midseason. He would have been fired preseason after 4 and 28. We said, this isn't working out. We got to get rid of this guy. Like, we can't afford to keep him on. But because Kenny's who he is, and he has the cachet he does in Louisville, he got 2 full seasons of abysmal basketball, and he'll never truly understand that. Clearly, from his comments tonight, that if any other head coach in America was hired for this job and did what he did in year 1, he wouldn't have had a year 2. And if he did have a year 2, if he had the year 2 that Kenny would have had, he would have been fired after the Kentucky game, no questions asked.
But again, my question with that is, at what cost? Like, to me, I just wonder what cost is the perception of the program now that you let it go on this long. And there's some people that do perceive that are obviously outside of Louisville, but like that they may see it as they had to do that. They felt like that's all they could get. All that they could get was Kenny Payne at the time.
What do you mean the perception, though, Justin?
Well, what do you say? Like somebody like
donors,
donors, like Bridgman and like Wade Hughes?
Yeah, what perception?
No, I mean, I just mean of people like, I'm looking at the next coach you want to get, and like the entire scenario of like what Louisville basketball is. I mean, recruits even everybody outside of the program, not the donors close by that are going to give you money and all that, but the people outside of it that you're going to try to talk to come into the program later down the line. That's where I worry. That's
No, it's nothing
that's
to worry
my-
about though. Like it should ease your
I mean-
words. Just look at what's being written about the program. Like think about
Mhm.
every
They're
incident.
talking about it on
whether it's
Sports Center right now with Scott Van Pelt.
Yeah.
and Ville. Yeah, I mean,
and
Well,
here's the-
let's see
but
when
think
Josh
about-
Schertz is sitting
no.
there looking like me coaching the team, and I'm kidding. I'm sure.
No,
I'm sure
but
it'd be
what
fine.
they're saying,
You're
though,
not
they're
kidding.
saying
You don't
that
have to
this
keep
is
saying
the
you're
top
kidding.
job.
You really don't.
No, I don't. I'm not gonna hate Josh Schertz if he comes in here. It's just not something that 2 seasons of this that's gonna get me raring to go and can go
Hey,
spend.
hold on. I want to
What
interrupt
will
this.
though?
I want to interrupt this. I have to stop this right now.
Okay,
Justin,
Dad.
you were starting to say that you don't like this possibility of Josh Schertz, and then you were like talking yourself out of it, like it's rude to say you didn't like the food.
Yes.
Isn't the lesson here like? And I'm challenging all of you in the comment section and that listens to every show. Whoever they hire, if you think that dude sucks and it's gonna fail, say it.
Well,
Like,
see-
get it on record, man. Like
I
none of
tried
us
that.
can-
It didn't work. It didn't work for me. I tried.
And if Cooper says that the dude sucks, he probably sucks.
Cooper too, baby.
You feel it in your bones. Like we got to hear it from the get go. I want y'all to be honest. Like if you hate the guy, let's hear it. Have some
Yep.
reasons, but I want to hear it. No one's allowed to get shouted down for whoever it is. Not after
Who's
this.
Cooper, who's your guy? By the way, 100. We need 100 subscribers. There's more than enough people in here right now. Go to YouTube. Do you want somebody want to win some free shit? Do you want free shit? Just hit the subscribe button. That's all you got to do. All I'm doing. I'm just trying to
Honestly,
help
like,
over here.
I love
point
I
of
love
the-
our fans' abilities to do all the word games with these names too, like
Mhm.
Josh Sharts, right? Like Nick is a prick. Like I love it. I love you guys. Do it. Keep going.
No, but to that point,
hate
like
the
the
guy, hate
perception
him.
of the
I wanna hear it.
program hasn't changed though. Like if you listen to any national analyst, even with Ohio State and DePaul and whatever job may open, they understand that this is the place to be. Like these people are outside of the city of Louisville
That's the best job open.
there's and there's multiple
going to be
reasons
open.
for that. One, the history behind it. Like, you know that if you are successful at Louisville, you can have a 30-year career and go down as a legend here, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the one thing, the history behind it. Obviously, the arena, the facilities, all of that is top notch. Then there's the NIL factor. Eric Crawford went on the V show and said he thinks Louisville has upwards of $4 million to spend in NIL that just wasn't tapped in by this current regime, or in 24 hours would be previous regime. So there's that. And then there is the fact that, like, you're coming in after 12-52. Like the expectations aren't going to be like they would be coming after a Rick Pitino. You're coming in after 12-52, so winning 20 games is going to excite a lot of people.
But my
the tournament
expectations haven't
is-
changed.
No,
Like,
no,
my-
of course not.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
saying initially, like you can slow play this thing. 18
Yeah.
to 20 wins next year, nobody's going to be crying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not to say
Yeah.
they want that consistently, but you're coming in after 12-52. You're not coming in after a national championship or a national championship winning coach. You're coming after the worst coach in basketball history, right? Like in major basketball history. So there is a lot of things that just say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Let me go see what that's talking about. And of course, if I win, I become a legend. We talk about the 2013
Yeah.
team almost every single day. So there is that. If you happen to pull out a championship here is a lot different than a championship in a lot of different places. So yeah, no, the perception has not changed nationally about Louisville just because of what incompetence was had during this current regime.
If anything, it's that we've had more people.
The if that you put there, that's the only thing that's like with me is like, yes, the if you win a championship. That's great. I've been a fan for 33 years. I got one of those. I got one of those, you know.
Well, you don't even have to
of me
win a
being
championship
excited.
though. Like you
But I
just
know-
have
yeah.
to be competitive
Competent.
basketball. I mean, winning a championship is
That's
hard.
true.
Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say that's easy. Like winning a championship is very, very hard to do. There's very few national champion coaches currently coaching that have won championships. Like it's hard. At the
Did
same
you say
time,
it was 6
though,
last night? Is that right?
yeah,
6
currently
current,
college
current
basketball.
coaches? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so like
Yeah.
it's hard. We're not acting like it's easy. At the same time, though, that's not going to be the immediate expectation. That will be the expectation, but just after 12-52 in 2 years, shoot, a 20-win season, looking competent out there on the court, making the tournament, all of those things, winning one tournament game, all of those things are things that haven't been done here in several years. several years, and it won't always be like this. So taking
Right.
a job like this at this current state is very attractive to a lot of people. And nationally, they're telling you that. All the national people are telling you that.
That's what I was getting at, is
Go
that
ahead.
the conversation hasn't changed about the quality of Louisville's job. In fact, if anything, it's been confirmed coast to coast by a
Yes.
lot of the national writers that have been saying this is ridiculous. Louisville's a top 10 job, and like this is so far below. Like it's been a subject of so many different articles, and just basically people kind of staring at it, going, "What the hell's this dumpster fire?" And knowing that Kenny Payne was going to be fired because it was so far below the standard. I mean, I don't think that, like, obviously we've taken some serious damage, but I don't think like our standing as a program for coaches to come here and stuff like that is necessarily like in the tank. The way coaches move around is a little bit different these days than it used to be. We're gonna have to find the coach that, like, if you're only gonna be satisfied by like 3 or 4 big names, and it's just simply nobody else is gonna scratch that itch for you right away, then I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be Scott Drew or bust, because we don't have $12 million to buy out some of these coaches. We don't. And it doesn't mean that, like, it's still kind of astounding to me the amount of people that are looking at Dusty May and just going, I don't know. He's got a Final Four run at FAU. Like, it's wild. And they're fetishizing coaches that have never been to the Final Four. And this guy took FAU to the Final Four. It's like,
that he
man, I
could go
don't
to
know why
Indiana.
we're looking
That's
down our
okay.
nose at this guy. I don't understand it.
Yeah, the one thing that, like, we talked about it a lot, plenty, and Phil just hit on it. Like the him going to Indiana thing doesn't bother me at all. Like, because if he comes to Louisville and he wins and he's adored by Louisville fans, I don't think he's going to Indiana. Like, I think
Right.
like,
Maybe
at
he
that point,
stays. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You have to get him to come here, and like Patino, you have to make him a Louisville man at that point until you kick him out, and
But here's the thing, like the thing with coaches in Louisville and during its current iteration, like we haven't, like, the fear of us lose. Like, I think that's like an insecurity thing from just the losing that we've done, because you got to think about it. There's not too many coaches that come here that want to leave if they're having success. Yeah, you might want to leave if you stink, or yeah, you might get fired if you stink, but there's a lot of coaches, like Denny Crum was here for 30 years and won multiple championships, didn't leave. Rick Pitino, who had been all over college basketball or been to the pros and stuff, had a lot of success. And guess what? Didn't want to leave and kicked and screamed as they were putting him out. Like, he was kicking and screaming on his way out the door. So it's like I think we can hold our own if we go get a coach that may be an alumni of Indiana, or you hear Mick Cronin, there's reports that he would walk from LA to Louisville. Like, and he's in UCLA.
if that's in the contract, I'll take Mick Cronin back. If that's in
was
the
gonna say,
contract, that we
start
we can
As long
walk.
as he robs the bank to pay his buyout, sure.
Yeah,
It's like
somebody-
Forrest Gump when it's all over.
Yeah,
He's
the
got
beard.
the bald spot, big beard.
Yeah. We find me out there. I'll ESPN Louisville Plus it. I'll just follow behind him. I'm gonna lose some weight. Let's do it. Anyway,
Before we move forward, we should reissue the disclaimer. None of us are responsible for anything Drew Diener says to the Bring Brom home guy. None of us.
Are they still going at it?
on it?
I mean,
Double D
Phil's
if he
got a
did
desk
find
next
out.
to him. It's probably partly Phil's fault. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And then I also think so far my favorite comment is, let my boy in the bottom left get a word in. That's you, Lou.
Or is that Phil?
Me?
Or is it
Mine-
Phil?
mine's
I think
Phil.
it's Phil. Yeah,
Or is it
right.
Phil?
I
Oh,
feel like I've
Bottom
been talking
left is
too
Phil.
much. I feel like I've been talking too much. Oh my goodness, no! I mean,
No, both the bottom
we've
boys
hit
have
on all
been-
these things, and I think it's been pointed out. Like,
Bottom
boring
boys.
may be okay.
Yeah, Bottom Boys
Morton-
was wild. Yeah, you were wild.
Bottom
for that.
boys, it's gonna
Those Bottom Boys. Yeah,
Shut
Bottom
off the bottom boys.
There's anything wrong with
that's
that.
crazy.
Justin just threw that in there. Said both the bottom boys have been pretty quiet. It's like,
Yeah, that was crazy.
guys, we know you guys are more power
We're doing
bottoms. You should speak up.
prison push-ups.
make t-shirts.
Old
Bottom
English. Yeah.
boys. That's
Louis
great.
got a teardrop. Yeah, we're good.
ESPN Louisville Plus bottom boys. It's Phil and Louis.
That's how we
So the
operate.
new
No,
show
but
is Louis and Phil, the bottom boys.
Bottom boys in the afternoons. But no, I think like we need to prepare ourselves. Boring may be okay at first, where it's not this splashy name, and it's like you got to sit in it for a little bit. And like I think Double D said this morning, it's like, if it's not Scott Drew, I just want people to prepare themselves that you've tried it. the Chris Mack prearranged marriage way. You've tried it with the alumni way. Like, maybe try it this extensive search way that it looks like it's being reported that's out there, and things could maybe work out in your favor. And I think Pat Forty put something out there that we talked about last night. Maybe you find the next Kellen DeBoer of the college basketball sport. And that's what and it doesn't excite people off the bat, but that's what you're striving to do, quite frankly, is be the next big star of the sport, because they are dipping a little bit in terms of, like, with Coach K and Roy Williams leaving. Like, you got to find the new guy of the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a question. Because somebody talked about, Patino, or Jeff did. Jeff was saying about Patino kicking and screaming on his way out. How does KP go? Do we get footage? Do we get the Gillespie hallway? Do we get anything out of this? Do we get some kind of entertainment?
We get that. No, we get like that funeral procession camera of Bozich driving him to the airport.
Is Bozich, like how Louis was Issel's little man, is Bozich going to be his little man and like carry the box out for him, lay his coat down?
Oh man, that was a little man. Dang.
That was a good 2 years.
That was a
Little
little man.
That was a good 2 years.
But, no, by the way, Issel singing "You Happy Birthday" made my week.
It warmed my
was
heart.
The best. Yeah.
Yeah, happy late
I didn't
birthday,
even know
Louis.
he had written my birthday down. I had no idea. Never know what big is, man. But no, some of the comments on here are amazing. Please keep them coming. They are fantastic. Someone asked if that makes Biscuit a top. It does.
We're
Yes.
dead.
That's
I want
what
to
Phil
look at
said.
the Brady bunch. I'm gonna
Now
look up
it's-
at Biscuit
that's
right
what
now. I'm just gonna look
That's
up
right.
like the Brady bunch. I'm looking up at Biscuit right now, so being in the bottom.
Don't you ever forget it either.
Exerting your dominance.
Since
Josh
you guys
Taylor's
brought
the
up
top or
like
bottom
the next
next.
big star,
man.
the next big star coach, like
Mhm.
I think that this is a tough thing for Josh, that he's got to both nail it and maybe be as risk averse as possible, while maybe having to sell people on this person who will be the next big thing not being as proven as you want. And so I would love to know for you guys, like, who do you think is a possible final candidate that you'd maybe have to be sold a little bit on, that you feel like would be a reasonable roll of the dice for Josh, that I'm getting Billy Donovan coming from Marshall, that sort of thing. Who seems like that person to you? And let's do this like in order here. Louis to Jeff and around. All right, we'll start with you, Louis.
I'll go with a big name. Eric Musselman's that guy for me. He would be the one that you would actually have to sell to me, because I don't know that his temperament would work here, because I think there's a lot more eyeballs on you in the Louisville job than there are in the Arkansas job. He seems a little unstable for that kind of thing. And I just wonder if in a place where people want to think of their coaches, especially on the basketball court, as 10, 12, 15-year kind of guys, I think Musselman's a 5-6 years needs to reset somewhere else kind of coach. And I think if that was the name that came up at the end, I'd be really uncomfortable with it.
You'd be
So
uncomfortable
you
with
said-
it? I said,
Yeah, I was about to say, is it the guy that you like or don't like? 'Cause you said uncomfortable, so you wouldn't like Musselman?
That was the question from Mark. Like a guy that if he got to the end and you were trying to be convinced of him, who's that guy that you'd have to be convinced of? Musselman's that guy for me. I'm not convinced.
The guy that I think that I'm convinced of, but I think would take some convincing for like the fan base. There's two guys. There's Amir Abdul-Rahim at South Florida. I just like the way he talks. I like the way he moves. I like what he was able to do at Kennesaw. I like what he's doing at USF. I just like that a whole lot. But I think that would take some convincing, because he's so young, so new to like the upper levels of college basketball, and you want to see what he looks like in the tournament. If they make the tournament. The other one is Jerome Tang. Jerome Tang, another guy, great Elite 8 run, but once again, not having the best season, probably won't make the tournament this year. But I just think those two guys, this market, the way they speak, the way they're able to work the media, work the crowd, work the fans, and the success I think they would have with our infrastructure, NIL, facilities, etc., job, location, everything. I think those two would be the home run next up and coming coaches candidates.
I think I just want to own I did a terrible job asking this question. and so I really just want to start over. I'm owning this. This is I didn't do a good job here. What I'm saying is, who do you really like if it's someone that is a reach?
Yeah, okay.
So I was
That's what I
trying to
thought.
say,
Okay.
like, that some people would say you need to do some convincing. So I did a terrible job. Just who's going to be possibly perceived as a reach, but that you really think would nail it? Who's Billy Donovan coming from Marshall and blowing up to being what he was at Florida like that? Like Chris Beard right out of Central Arkansas is awesome at Texas Tech right away. Like somebody that maybe doesn't have this resume, but you think they'd blow up.
Okay, then that guy's Todd Golden for me at Florida.
Okay.
I think he's that guy. I really like him. I think he's probably one job away from a Louisville type level job. Florida's probably that if he keeps it going, especially with the emphasis on basketball in the SEC in the last 5-6 years, especially. But I think Todd Golden's that guy. I really think he'd be really good here, but I think it would take a lot of convincing of the fan base. Did I answer the question properly?
There you go.
There
you go.
I might need a second for this one because that one that throws a wrench in my. The only one and I hate because this is a stupid argument and it doesn't. I think he would work out, but I don't think he's gonna blow it up. But it was just one of those guys where I had mentioned to me the reason it would work for me is it would mend so many fences, and I talked about it. And Diener's brought him up. Richard Pitino, he's a guy who's done a solid job at New Mexico, honestly. Didn't work out in Minnesota, but had them at top 25 for a lot of the season this year. Give him a lot more tools to work with. Coming back home, you give that olive branch back to Pitino. Maybe you try to mend fences there. Maybe he ends up loving Louisville up a little bit once again. Some way to fix like I said, the one way for me as a father, if you want to right things with me, no matter how bad it's been, if you do something for my son, for my child, I'm much more likely to forgive you. That's just me. I'm a sap as a dad. So a lot of little twists and turns with that.
If you do something for my son, for my child,
Somebody's got their volume up.
more likely to.
Somebody have that on?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, Justin, congratulations on the sex. Biscuit, who's that coach for you?
I don't have 17 like you, Louie. I'll get there. We're working on it.
Look, I mean, I think that anybody outside of Scott Drew at this point is probably going to take some convincing for a lot of people. But I'll set Dusty May aside because I think he's the most qualified. He's a rock star, and I think that's kind of a cop-out answer at this point because I think with a Final Four under his belt at FAU, I don't need any convincing. But I understand that some people just aren't going to be happy unless we get their guy. I get it, especially after the last couple of years. But I think Josh Schertz is a guy that I think is going to make a Power 5 school very happy. I've said that a lot. We talked about it last night. I don't know if it's going to be Louisville, just because there's a lot of unanswered questions about the size of the job and everything with him. But he's definitely somebody that would take some convincing. I'm going to throw a name out there that's a guy that could just flat out coach that would absolutely take a ton of convincing for this fan base, and that's Pat Kelsey at College of Charleston. So he's got a winning pedigree at Winthrop. He's been at Charleston for 2 years, plays an exciting brand of basketball, and he knows what he's doing. He's not in my top 3 or 4, but I like him, and I think that he would probably send a lot of the fan base over the edge if he was hired. But if that's the guy that Josh Schertz likes, I think he can just flat out coach basketball. But I mean, Jeff mentioned a guy that's my number 2, of the non-Scott Drew options. That's Jerome Tang. So,
yeah.
Quick reminder
I'll
before
go.
Phil goes.
Yeah.
Quick
go ahead.
reminder: 90 subscribers to go. Do you want me to spend my money or not? I will spend my money. Just subscribe to the fucking channel. That's all I ask. Sorry, wife.
Wow.
I hear her upstairs. She's not going to be happy. But anyway, all right, Phil, go ahead. Tell us about your JCC guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's Schertz because especially if they don't make the NCAA tournament this week, like people are going to be like, you can't hire him. So that's something to monitor this Sunday with them losing in there, what the committee does for them in terms of if Indiana State is even in the tournament or not. Everybody tells me that he's going to be a star in this, and I think he probably will, but I think it would be an extremely tough sell if they do not make the tournament in order to possibly go make that leap from Indiana State to Louisville and convince the fan base to be happy. He could be the second coming of John Wooden and is going to win all these titles, but the fan base would not be happy at all with that.
Isn't it weird? Like, I don't believe anybody who says Pat Kelsey at all. Like,
yeah, I
don't think feels like if like almost like I don't know where that originates, but it's like a name you should say if you want to sound like you are like you know a lot about coaches, right? Like it's a way of like it's showing off, you know, that you're like, oh, and I prefer Pat Kelsey like that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Louisville would ever hire Pat Kelsey, so I don't know how the name gets on the list. And I'm totally skeptical of that. Utterly skeptical of that.
We're not hiring Pat Kelsey.
Hey, puppy.
I rest my case.
There it is.
Sorry, she was barking a lot. No, we're not hiring Pat Kelsey, but like I feel like I've thrown out Josh Schertz because people know I like him. You know, I've thrown out Jerome Tang and Dusty May. I mean, I think he'd be the least amount of convincing for a non-Scott Drew hire. You know, I was kind of trying to go off the board for the conversation.
All right,
sorry, Mark.
I want to do it like this. I wanted to say, like on Wheel of Fortune, like when the final one, they give you RSTLNE, right? Like they give you those letters to start. So I'm gonna give Mick Cronin solely to shut fucking bring Brom home guy up. That's RSTLNE. Like that's given. Who for each of you? Who can it not be for you? Like who? Like God, not that. And why?
Jamie Dixon.
I don't think he's serious, bro.
I saw Eric Crawford put that out there. Hey, look, I mean, he's not as terrible as people, but I just think it would be. The fans would revolt. And again, I don't think it. Actually, I take the back. Chris Holtman. That's the one that EC put out there. It's like the fired guy.
He hasn't. If we're talking about that list, he hasn't made the second weekend since 2008.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
All right.
Sorry, I'm throwing off Nick Valvano's chiming in, and I got to get out here to make a bottle. So, Justin, boys, I appreciate it. It's 2-week-old. I'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Thanks, Phil.
Love you, Phil.
Cut off your face and wear it to my birthday party.
All right, Dave. Who is your United Nations Security Council veto? Who are you saying like it can't be for you?
I mean, we're keeping because Chris Beard's already basically been ruled out. So, did you say don't say Mick Cronin?
Yeah, like I'm giving that. That's for everybody. That's like the middle square on your bingo.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we go somewhere else first? Because I got to think about this. Okay. I mean, which one is he? Is he Jamie Dixon or Chris Holtman? Which one did Phil take?
He took them both, but which kind of screws us all over. But, it's fine.
Go somewhere else. Let me think about it for a minute.
It was a veteran move by Phil there.
You get the draft ahead of him.
Yeah. How about this? I wouldn't want Sean Miller. He's been thrown out a few times. I wouldn't want Sean Miller, but I don't think he's a realistic candidate.
Yeah, I'm with you on all those guys. The Holtman, Jamie Dixon, Sean Miller. Yeah, none of those guys. I don't really know. There's not a name that I've seen enough that I just say outside of those three. And two of them we just heard from Eric Crawford today, and I was like, I can't really see that happening. The one person that I guess I'd be okay with. I guess I just don't know enough about Schertz. My thing is I haven't read. I know that there's big long pieces out there about him, and I know there's things that like really back that he's a really good coach. I just don't know enough about Schertz, and just to, like you said, hiring a guy. That's not to say now getting Indiana State having that job and this position as a ranked team. That's not no easy feat. Like that. That's a tall task. At the same time, it's like you said, if you don't make the tournament, even though you had Indiana State ranked for the first time since Larry Bird was in school, I'm not going to knock you, but that would be the one that I'd be like, okay, but I wouldn't veto it. I wouldn't veto it, but I'd be like, well, all right, well, I'll see how this goes.
It's Musselman for me. I know I said that earlier. It's Musselman for me. I just don't think he'd work here. I think it would be a disaster. And 1B for me, I don't think Greg McDermott would be a good fit for Louisville. I don't think he's coming, but I do not think he would be a good cultural fit for what goes on here in Louisville. I just don't.
Man, I actually think Musselman could work. That's weird. I really do think. I'm not saying that he would. I think he could work simply because, well, one, he can recruit. Like he's had NBA guys come through Arkansas over the last 5 years or so. Two, he's had a lot outside of this year. He's had a lot of success. The Elite Eights. I mean, he hasn't obviously been to the Final Four. I don't think he hasn't won any championships, of course, but he's been to a couple of Elite Eights and different things. And I think his eccentricness and his outgoing and even his willing to be cringy and corny sometimes. I think that works with fans. Coming off of a tenure, once again, and putting everything in perspective of we're coming off this tenure. Now, everything doesn't work after every tenure, but coming off of this tenure where you had no media engagement, no fan interaction, no nothing. Musselman is going to do at least those things, and people will get it behind that. Like, people will be excited about that. Now, whether he can be prickly or not, that's another thing. But him, like, wearing a tracksuit and recording it and showing that you got to get out your blocks or whatever, like that corny, cringy stuff will work, because then he'll go on The Drive with Biscuit and Mark or go on Rabo and Co. And you get to ask him, like, Coach, what was that about? You know what I mean? Like, what was that about? And he'll get to explain even in further detail why he decided to give that message to his team that day. And that'll work for a lot of people.
By the way,
I think,
people, you
sorry, go
can't
ahead.
make like 2-3 Tom Crean comments and then not make any more Tom Crean jokes. You got to keep doing those. Like, come on, people. Come on. We're trying to have civilization.
Old Creany Tom. Look, by the way, it's the first thing I thought of when Phil left. Spencer Brown pointed out that Justin made me a bottom.
You're now one of the bottom boys.
I got chesty on the top, and I was immediately knocked down for it, and I understand that. It's just the Musselman conversation. I'm kind of agree with both of you guys. I'm pulling a Nikki two sides here, but like, I do think he would be really good out of the gate, but I think he burns bright and craps out, which is kind of what Louis was saying, and I think he wears out his welcome places. But if you're just looking for a guy that's going to inject a shot of adrenaline into your program and win and be exciting in the first couple of years, absolutely. But if you want a guy who's like, if you're tired of coaching searches, which we've had, or new coach hires and turning over, staffs every couple of years, like we've done the last couple of seasons, then Muss is probably not your guy. That's just how I feel about that. He'll probably have two eyes on the NBA at some point and get out of here.
Yeah. Clearly,
and he's older. He is older too. He doesn't look as old as he is, but he is older.
Yeah. Clearly, mine's Steve Forbes. I just don't need to. That was just for Mark. There was no other reason for that.
Aimed directly at Mark Ennis.
But I tend to agree with Louis. And like, the two names that have been like two of the most popular names to me have really I feel like have really lessened in my eyes. And like, I don't know if I would be excited like I would be a year ago for what I thought were big hires, which would be a Musselman or a Tang. And like, the reason is, like, both watching what has happened with both this season, Tang struggled quite a bit. I feel like a lot of that has been built off of, yes, he did well in the tournament, but he has beaten Kansas. I'll give him that. But beating Kansas this year is not beating Kansas as we've seen in the past. As well as,
does have 4 top 25 wins this season.
It's still Allen Fieldhouse,
but he
with the
keeps
top 10
struggling.
team.
But he keeps struggling. He struggled otherwise, though, as well.
Sure.
So I worry about that. That brings me apprehension. And then Musselman, if you can have one of these seasons, that puts me on alert. Like that, like it's. I understand Cal's had it, Mac had it at the end. I just don't. I understand maybe it's a different era in the game where this is just part of the game now. It's possible you could literally shit out at the end, and you don't know how you ended up there. But to me, it's too big of a risk to be a failure if this is a trend for Musselman. For me personally,
I saw Lamont Paris's name in the chat and someone asking if he's just too green for this job. I mean, do people have an opinion on that? Because I think people generally have a very high opinion of Lamont Paris as a head coach.
I think Lamont Paris is an excellent coach, but that's a great example of somebody that I like that would take a lot of selling. Just because he's in year 2 at South Carolina. He's done a phenomenal job turning that program around quickly and has some really nice landmark wins. I think that a nice run in March would assuage some of the concerns with him. But it's still a guy with 2 years, at South Carolina, kind of like Tang has 2 years at Kansas State. But I love Tang's, pedigree. Obviously, we're all thirsting after his former boss right now. He comes from the Scott Drew coaching tree. I still think it's an incredible accomplishment he did in year 1, making the Elite Eight with that roster and understanding and taking full advantage of the transfer portal without nailing a bunch of elite transfers. He cobbled together a bunch of guys that were outside the top 50 and even outside the top 100 and turned them into an Elite Eight team. That's somebody who understands basketball and understands how to build a roster in the modern era. But none of these guys aren't without, some kind of downside that's going to take some serious convincing, if not on Josh's part, because I think Hurd can only say so much, in the introductory press conference. The onus is going to be almost immediately on whoever you hire, to sell the fan base and get to work immediately and sell them on his vision, start immediately at evaluating the roster and turning it over and building it in his own vision. And obviously when the season comes around, hitting the ground running. Nothing's going to convince people more outside of a couple of names, which only one of them I think is even on the table anymore right now. Winning is the only thing that's truly going to convert people at the end of the day. And I think that, even we give Justin a lot of grief for being the resident grouch, but I mean, I know that if the season comes around, even if it's one of the guys that he didn't want, if he comes out of the gate and it looks like Louisville basketball, and we're winning games and we're doing it in the way that, not even the way we're accustomed to, just good, solid basketball with defensive principles and an offense that makes sense, and he's going to come around too, it's everybody's on the table to be convinced,
I was bought in for a solid day and a half with Kenny Payne. There was at least a good 36 hours that I was on the Payne train because he did the press conferences and all that. And then I remember, and this was early-ish, whatever, you get the kid when they take a nap on you. I fell asleep. And midway through that game against Leanne Rhymes. And then I woke up and saw the score. And then I was done. I didn't even need to watch it. I knew that, I knew this was the end for me. But
look, after the first 10 games last year, it was. I think a lot of people were in that boat where, man, when he was hired, I was like, all right, look, he wasn't my top choice, but I could see the vision. Sure, he's going to recruit really well, and might as well let's give him a ride. I know we didn't have a lot of options at this point, not the typical amount of options that we would have at Louisville. And then after the first 10 games, I mean, I was pretty much in a situation where I was like, man, I do not think this is there's nothing that's indicating to me this is going to get better. Right. But I think whoever the new coach is going to have a chance to win over almost every fan. Fan.
To that point. Oh, go for it, Mark. My bad.
Well, I was just going to say, I was watching an old Eric Crawford video and going through his feed. There is one that's, it's not the losing, it's how. And that was 8 games into year 1.
Yeah.
That Eric was doing a video that people are really mad and it's because of the substance. It's not just the losing, it's the how it looked. And that was really, really early for alarm bells. And you look back on it now and we probably didn't sound them loud enough. I think when it comes to the coaches outside of really there's a tier of guys that I would say like Scott Drew, and I'll put Nate Oates in there. It would be a really big name hire that I think very few people would doubt. But everybody else is working on a continuum where it's if they have short levels of experience, it needs to be really outlier awesome in the experience. Or if they have longer experience, then I'll tolerate less if you've kept it up year by year by year. Like there's a longevity with quality guy, or there's the big time spark like Dusty May kind of person, and you really got to try to divine which one you think your guy is, and if you think he can stretch it out and keep it up, or if you think your guy that hasn't gotten there yet can here and take that final step. And
Mark
I don't.
that.
You're rolling the dice either way.
I'm glad you caught that. I'm glad you caught that too. If you can, yeah.
Whether he can stretch it out and keep it up, yeah, we got you.
Right.
This is ESPN 680
Bottom
93.9
life,
after
let's
dark,
go.
baby. Can you feel the tension, baby? Let's go.
So we're talking coaches. Go, Jeff. Go.
No, I was just saying one thing that is common in all of these things is I think just as a fan base, you have to also keep in mind that with this next coach, one thing that's going to happen, it's not his fault. It's just based off our PTSD and what we just went through, is that every single thing from the day you're hired is going to be observed. And the timeline that you're on, all of it's going to be observed, probably more than it ever has been observed before, because now we know how things are not supposed to happen. We know it's not supposed to take you 3 weeks to hire your staff. We know that if there's no roster turnover immediately, you don't know what you're doing. Like, we know the signs. Whether we thought we knew them before, but it's like, I don't think this is how this is supposed to be going. But I'm not a coach. He gets paid $3 million to do these things. So maybe it's not being done right, but okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And then we turned out and found out it wasn't being done right. And so now if you're the next guy, if I don't quickly start hearing about guys entering the portal, and I'm not quickly hearing about guys being hired, whether strength coach, assistant coaches, whoever, then I know, okay, we might have just made the wrong turn again. We might be able to. So those are just things I will be like watching out for.
I've mentioned this with Mark before. If we're talking about a Scott Drew, if we're talking about coaches of what we consider to be in that very, very top level of college basketball for this job, why am I never hearing Mark Few's name? Don't you just have to find out? Don't you just have to put so much money in front of that guy that you say, look, you got 10, 12 years left in your career. Get over here. Get this side of the Rockies where the players actually are. You don't have, we'll help you with NIL. Look at this freaking place. You don't have to play in the kennel for the rest of your freaking career. Come to the Center. Come to the Kiever Center. Do these things. Am I out of my mind here? I think you take a hard look at Mark Few, and I think whatever offers in front of Scott Drew, you have to put in front of a guy like Mark Few, I think.
Hey, Coach,
I love that idea. Marcus Maben has mentioned that he would prefer that they start with Mark Few. I would love that, and I've compared it to Chris Peterson at Boise State all those years. And you really thought he might stay here. He might actually do this, and then he finally does at the end of his career take the plunge at Washington. There's no reason Louisville shouldn't at least inquire if that's a possibility here, and it would make as much sense as Scott Drew. So if you're going to play that game, yes, you might as well shoot your shot there. I totally agree with that.
Peterson made the CFP at Washington too after he made that move out of Boise. Yep. It's been done before. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Like I keep hearing from people this, the what Louisville basketball is, and we started this show by talking about the national guys talking about what this job is. Then Mark Few should be a candidate. I don't think there's even a question.
It's not that I don't think he wouldn't be a great candidate, and obviously we know he'd do a great job. I think it's just really hard to get guys up out their seat after 20 years. Like college basketball is a little different in college football, even though we're making the reason why I think the Scott Drew thing is getting so much noise is because there's legit interest there. But even then we're still saying it's a long shot because once again, it's really, really hard to get guys from Power 5, Power 6 jobs that's been there 20 years, especially if they won a national championship. I think you don't hear Mark Few is because I don't think he has legit interest. You're hearing so much of Scott Drew because there seems to be now that's not to say that they're going to get him, but there seems to be legitimate interest in taking this Louisville job. And if he doesn't take the Louisville job right now, then I don't think he'll ever leave Baylor, because of the reasons we've stated previously why this is the time to take it right now. But just on Mark Few, I mean, shoot, if you can get Mark Few, then try to go get Mark Few. I just don't think there's a realistic chance of him leaving.
He's 61, by the way, for some people that were asking in the chat. Mark Few.
That's why I said 10, 12 years, because that would put him right at 70.
Yeah. He seems like a healthy young man. You know.
I think it's also,
he's got
to
more time
me,
left than I do.
I wonder, outside of like getting a Scott Drew, if it's kind of like one of the main things that Josh Hurd is contemplating with this hire is you are really you're re-upping with this new generation of coaches. Scott Drew's kind of more on that line of the older not really older generation, but like that, you know, not exactly Calipari, but you know what I mean, where you kind of sit on both sides of that line. But now, like,
he's
really
20 years in.
on,
He's 20 years in, so yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but he's still 50, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So he still has a lot ahead of him. But really, just focusing on getting who is going to be that next crop of guys. Problem is, obviously, Nate Oates and guys like that are already, planted in places like Alabama. I saw a guy from Alabama saying, I think a lot of us we're not even considering that, notion anymore right now. But it's just really trying to like hone in on who is that next guy? And, maybe it is Dusty May. Maybe that's why he's gotten so much momentum. Every day we have a new guy with momentum. But that's what it seems like today's was Dusty May. And there's a part of me that, like, that's one that's kind of like hitting where I'm like, I can live with that. Like, I could definitely live with the Dusty May in his Final Four. So that makes it a lot easier. But that's what I wonder if it's just really maybe we, outside of a Scott Drew, you don't need to be focusing on trying to get an old guy. That's really probably not going to be here for very long. And then you're going to be redoing this whole thing all over again, this whole cycle of what we've been doing the last few years.
All right, fellas, we need to wrap. This is wild. We did 2 hours of this.
And there's almost 3,000 people on the stream right now, just for everybody at home.
1 a.m., almost 1 a.m.
Yep. Yeah, 3,000 people. Thank you, everybody, so much. You all did let me down. We didn't get to 1,000, but I will be generous. I will leave it open for the people that are going to watch this later. You're going to watch it either. It's going to be podcasted, all that stuff. So if you watch it later, you have 24 hours. You have 24 hours from this moment to subscribe to the channel. If we get to 1,000, the giveaway's still happening. So appreciate that. Let's keep it quick. No final thoughts. Like yesterday, I did it, and it was like Jack Grossman did Jack Grossman.
Oh, that was my fault. Yeah.
Oh. So
I'll just go ahead and own that.
A one sentence hit. Your thoughts going into tomorrow. Biscuit, you're first.
Oh, I'm first.
Yeah.
Look, I can't wait to hear this press conference. I don't think we'll hear from Kenny again. But it'll be Josh Hurd, and I want to hear his opening statement. I want to hear his answers to every question. I want to hear the questions that are going to be asked, because I think there's going to be a lot of them. And I will be hanging on his every word. I just want to hear the process, whatever he wants to tell us from his side of the story. But tomorrow ought to be fun, Mark.
I don't think we'll ever hear from Kenny again. And it'll be sad but appropriate that the last thing we heard from him was some real blame shifting. It fits, and I hate that it fits, but it does. And I too will be fascinated to see what we get from Josh, because he's still going to be doing that tightrope of, I think, wanting to let everyone know, like, this super sucked and I'm not okay with it, without being like, can you believe this fucking guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to separate the art from the artist in this sense. And so that's the tightrope I'll be really fascinated to see Josh kind of to try to walk tomorrow.
Louis?
In a weird way, it's just
actually
sad.
wait. Sorry, real quick. Somebody earlier said, "Is that Rummage? Is that the guy who's going to Disney World every couple of weeks?" About you, and I didn't get to bring it up, but it just made my night. So
No, I
go
appreciate
ahead,
you
Rummage.
very much. Someone commenting that there's about as many people on the stream to fill half of Baylor Stadium. I appreciate all the Baylor Stadium jokes that I've seen. All of them are fantastic. All of this is sad at the end of it, because the guys who won here and come back to coach are supposed to take you back to the promised land. And we got nowhere near it with Kenny Payne here in this situation. And at the end of the day, it's just sad. And tomorrow you get to watch a man decide that one person isn't going to coach anymore. And he's got a decision that's literally going to mark the rest of his career to make. And so those are pretty remarkable things that are going to happen tomorrow.
Kenny dropped us off in the elephant graveyard. Basically, what you said.
Joe.
You must never go
these
there.
damn elephant bottoms.
Just to kind of go back, just to kind of like obviously double down on Louis' point, it is sad because Kenny's tenure here will really encapsulate his entire U of L career, whether that's, favorable or not, right or not. It's just how it's going to go down in history because his failures as a coach overshadow his greatness as a player. So that's just how it's going to go down. I am going to be hanging on every word that Josh Hurd says tomorrow. The news conference is going to be interesting. The search, all the rumors that are coming out, the tournament is going to be interesting because of the search, because of the rumors. What team loses first, who gets out first, who's getting interviewed, people tracking flights, all of that stuff is all going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to that as opposed to, sulking in the moment that was these last 2 years. So that's going to be fun.
Yep. The fun part officially starts tomorrow after we get through the little sad press conference. Anyway, the only thing I would just say is just kind of like touching on what you all were saying, which is just basically it's a new day. And we've unfortunately had too many new days in recent history with Louisville basketball and Louisville sports, but hopefully it's a new day and hopefully we don't have another one of these for a good long while. Guys, really appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Ennis, Biscuit, Phil, Louie, Jeff, thank you all so much for coming in, joining, doing this. Having fun tonight. I know it takes a lot of time out of your day or your night, but we've had a blast with it. Guys, if you haven't already, smash the like button on whatever platform, but definitely, like I said, go to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. You have 24 hours. If we get to 1,000, we'll be doing that giveaway here as soon as it's over. By the way, there's one final word that I wanted to say, and guys, make sure just as soon as we close it, then you can leave. Let's not look like amateurs. Somebody did to me the other day. But the only thing I have left to say is
coach is gone.